There are wounds you can't see because they don't bleed. They just sit quietly behind the ribs, throbbing when something sharp brushes against the soul. Mine began throbbing the day I opened my inbox and realized I hadn't received an invitation to my daughter's gala. It wasn't the kind of party where you accidentally forget a name. It was a fundraiser, black tie, crystal chandeliers, and engraved place cards. The Langford Women's Foundation annual winter gala. I knew about it only because a former coworker of mine mentioned it during coffee. "Isn't Elise speaking again this year? I saw her name on the board lineup," she asked, sipping her latte. "Must be a proud moment, huh?" I nodded, and when I got home I checked my inbox, then my spam folder, then my mailbox just in case. Nothing. Not a single word from Elise, no Evite, no hope you can come. No assistant calling with a prepared script, no accidental forward from the foundation. It wasn't a mistake, it was a message, and it wasn't the first one. The truth is, I hadn't been part of Elise's public life for years. Not since she became Elise Langford, the version of her that belonged in boardrooms, not backyards. Not since she scrubbed the dust of her blue collar past from her heels and rewrote her story in cleaner fonts. Still, I thought I'd earned enough to sit in the back of the room. I didn't need recognition, just presence, just to see her do what I raised her to do. I wasn't looking for a spotlight, just a seat, so I bought a ticket. I didn't call to ask why I hadn't been invited. I didn't want her voice to tighten with awkward silence or hear her blame the admin team or limited capacity. I'd heard those lines before. I clicked the anonymous RSVP link on the gala page and entered my name like I was a stranger. 2 weeks later, a small envelope arrived with the foundation seal embossed on the back. Inside was a card. "Thank you for supporting women's leadership. Your table number 19. No note, no welcome, table 19. When I arrived, the ballroom was everything I imagined. Grand, glossy, cold in its perfection. A young woman with a headset scanned my ticket and smiled professionally. "Mr. O'Neill, you're with table 19, back left near the kitchen doors." I thanked her and walked past crystal centerpieces, donors in tuxedos, and a jazz quartet playing something expensive. Table 19 sat behind a half-wall, close enough to hear the laughter from the VIP section but far enough to feel forgotten. I was seated between the valet supervisor and a woman managing the coat check spreadsheet on her phone. The tablecloth was wrinkled. Our silverware didn't match. Our wine glasses came half-filled, not with Chardonnay, but with something that tasted like it came from a box. This wasn't a mistake. This was a placement. I was the father of the executive director seated with the help. I tried not to let it show on my face. I've been invisible before. A man who works 2 jobs and raises a daughter alone doesn't get through life expecting applause. But this was different. Elise entered through the front. The crowd turned toward her like flowers toward sun. She wore a navy blue gown, hair pulled back in a way that made her look presidential. She was stunning, commanding, applauded, and she didn't see me. Or if she did, she didn't stop. Didn't wave, didn't smile, didn't tilt her head in recognition. And in that moment, a quiet voice inside me whispered something I hadn't wanted to hear in years. "You are no longer part of the picture." But what Elise didn't know, what no one in that room knew, was that someone else had seen me. Long before the gala, long before the snub, someone on the foundation's financial committee had recognized a certain investment fund that had recently infused the organization with enough capital to relaunch its entire scholarship division. Northgate Partners. The name on the check wasn't mine, but the hand that wrote it was. I didn't need a spotlight. I already had the power, and I was done being quiet. The thing about building something for someone is, you don't expect them to remember every nail you hammered in place, but you do hope they'll remember who held the hammer. I wasn't always invisible. There was a time Elise would run into my arms when I came home, holding her school drawings with glue still wet. There was a time I was the first name she called when she scraped her knee or had a bad dream or couldn't find her stuffed bear. She was 6 when her mother passed. Cancer doesn't knock, it breaks the door down. And when it leaves, it takes the music with it. For months our house was too quiet. Elise would sleep in my bed, curled into my side like she was afraid of being erased too. I had never cooked before, never braided hair, never sewn a button, but I learned, because you do. I worked for the city by day, managing electrical systems in low-income housing. Nights, I swept floors at Jefferson High, the same school Elise would later graduate from with honors. I still remember the janitor's closet, how I'd keep her class schedule taped to the inside door. So when I mopped the hallway outside her classroom, I could peek in for 5 seconds and see her raise her hand, hear her laugh. That was enough. I didn't mind working weekends. I didn't mind the overtime. I didn't mind saying no to myself if it meant saying yes to her. She needed braces. I sold my old Chevy. She wanted piano lessons. I took a night shift cleaning offices downtown. She had a field trip to the Capitol. I pawned my father's watch. No one applauded, no one knew, but fathers don't keep score, we just keep going. And through it all I saved. Little by little, every bonus, every tax return, every side gig went into what I called the E-Fund. Elise's future. She got into Stanford. Not early decision, full admission. I cried when the envelope came. Not in front of her, of course. I waited until she left for a sleepover, then sat at the kitchen table and wept like a child. I'd done it. We'd done it. The first year she called me every Sunday. Second year she called once a month. By the third year I had to text twice before I got a reply. I told myself she was just busy, that I wanted her to outgrow me, that this was the point. But even after graduation, things never returned. She started going by Elise Langford, dropping my last name like it was a coat that no longer fit the season. I told myself it didn't matter, as long as she was happy, safe, thriving. But that's the thing about sacrifice. It echoes when there's silence. And that night, sitting at table 19, hearing her voice echo off the ballroom walls while I sipped boxed wine, I realized how loud my silence had become. I was the man who paid the mortgage on her dreams, but she'd redrawn the deed in someone else's name. Still, even then, I didn't hate her. What I felt was older than hate. It was grief. The grief of watching the person you love most forget the shape of your hands. But grief can be fertile. It can grow things if you let it. And I'd planted something years ago, something that was now fully bloomed. There are many ways to disappear. You can pack a bag and leave. You can change your name, skip town, let the phone go dark, or you can stay exactly where you are and watch as the people you love choose not to see you anymore. That was my kind of disappearance. It didn't happen all at once. It crept in like fog, subtle, slow, almost polite. A missing tag in a family Facebook photo. A holiday card signed from Elise and the Langford team, with no mention of Dad. A speech at a fundraising dinner where she thanked her professors, her mentors, and her network, but not the man who'd sold his car to buy her first semester's textbooks. No slaps in the face, just 1,000 paper cuts, each one bearing the same unspoken message. You don't fit the image anymore. I understood, or at least I tried to. I was a father who worked with his hands. My nails were never clean enough for donor luncheons. I'd never learned the art of using leverage in a sentence without meaning a crowbar. Her world was linen napkins. Mine was cloth rags. She curated a brand. I lived a life. I watched her career rise like the kind of tide you're proud of from shore, but that quietly sweeps your boat away while you're clapping. Every time I heard her speak at an event on the live stream, I held my breath, waited for a mention, a nod, a sliver of acknowledgement. Nothing. I remember once, an old friend of mine from the trade union saw Elise on a panel online. He called me that night. "Hell of a speaker, your girl, you must be proud." I said so, but I also told him with a smile he couldn't see over the phone. "She didn't mention me, probably ran out of time." He paused, kind but not blind. "She didn't forget, pal, she edited." That stuck with me. She didn't forget, she edited. That's when I realized I hadn't just been erased. I'd been rewritten. In her world, I wasn't the man who carried her to night classes when she had a fever. I was a line on a FAFSA form, a whisper of backstory that no longer matched the aesthetic. And the more her public star rose, the more my presence became a risk to her trajectory. The irony, I built the ladder she was climbing, but I wasn't allowed at the top, not even to wave. Still, I showed up. At her first office opening, I sent flowers. At her 30th birthday, I mailed a card with a check and a handwritten note. She texted back, "Thanks, Dad, very thoughtful." That was the whole message. No punctuation, no call. I know what people might say: she's busy, she's focused, she's building something. But so was I. For 30 years I'd been building something too, something she couldn't see, not because it wasn't there, but because she'd trained her eyes elsewhere. Still, I didn't confront her, not yet, because sometimes the best revenge is giving someone all the space they asked for, and letting them feel the chill when you finally step away. And I had stepped away, not from her life, not quite, but from the idea that I had to wait to be seen, because I'd already made my move, and she was about to find out just how visible I could be. There are things you can forgive without forgetting, but some moments don't ask for forgiveness. They ask for silence, and then they keep asking until your silence becomes surrender. The night of the gala was one of those moments. I had arrived early, not out of anxiety, just habit. I've always believed showing up on time is a form of respect, even when you're not sure it'll be returned. I stood near the back of the hall, watching the staff prepare. Waiters in starched uniforms adjusted place cards, checked floral arrangements, reviewed their wine lists like priests preparing sacraments. I scanned the tables: mahogany finishes, brass plate holders, custom-stitched linens. The kind of luxury that tries to look effortless but costs more than a month's wages. And then I saw it. Table 19. It was positioned behind a service column, partly shadowed by a velvet curtain that had been pinned back with visible tape. The centerpiece was shorter, the flowers fading. The seats had different cushions, thinner, flatter. No gift bags at the chairs. It wasn't subtle. You didn't need to be born in a country club to know this wasn't for donors. This was for overflow or the hired hands. I approached the usher politely and asked if there'd been a mix-up. He checked his clipboard. "No mistake, sir. You're listed for table 19, guest of Elise Langford." Guest of Elise Langford, my daughter. A guest in a life I helped build. I sat down slowly, feeling the chair give beneath me in a way that no cushion ever should. The others at the table trickled in. A photographer with fraying camera straps, a young woman from the floral team, and an exhausted man in a server's apron on break. We nodded at one another. No one asked who I was. No one cared. The kitchen doors behind us swung open and shut every few minutes, letting out a burst of steam and oil. From my seat, I could hear the forks clinking on fine porcelain 4 tables ahead, laughter chiming like champagne flutes. That's where Elise was. That's where she placed me, behind the curtain next to the mop sinks. And then the lights dimmed. A hush fell over the room. The host walked on stage, followed by a soft piano underscore. And now, please welcome the woman who has redefined our foundation, who has inspired a generation of leaders, and who embodies the future of philanthropy. Executive Director Elise Langford. Applause, cameras flashed, and she appeared. She moved like she belonged to the air, weightless, precise, practiced. The kind of entrance built for stages, not porches, not kitchen floors, not the memory of her as a little girl sitting on my lap with peanut butter on her chin. She stood center stage and smiled like someone who had forgotten where she started. "I am so proud of what we've built," she began, "but even more proud of the people who believed in this mission. The colleagues, the donors, the partners." I held my breath. Maybe this was it. Maybe she'd say something. A name, a nod, a look, anything. But her eyes scanned over the room like a spotlight avoiding shadows. There was no dad in her speech. Only strategy, only branding, only forward. When she finished, the audience stood. I didn't. I clapped because I always clap for her, even when she can't hear it. But inside me, something small and final slipped loose like the sound of a key breaking off inside a lock. I felt it, quiet and clean. This is not my seat. This is not my place. But neither is this her world alone. And while she stood under the lights, basking in the warmth of curated applause, I sat in the dark, holding the one truth she couldn't see. She may own the room tonight, but I already own the building. She found me during dessert, not during her speech, not during the donor photos or interviews, not during the private board toast or the envelope reveals. Only once the creme brulee had been torched and half-eaten did she appear, heels silent against the marble floor, voice low and managerial. "Dad," she said, standing behind me, "can I talk to you for a moment?" Her tone wasn't warm. It was public, controlled, like she was trying to mitigate a situation without drawing attention. I followed her through the staff hallway into a side corridor lit by maintenance fluorescents. It smelled faintly of furniture, polish, and steel. We stood between a stack of folding chairs and a rolling cart of unused silverware. She crossed her arms. "I didn't know you were coming." I looked at her. "You sent no invitation." Her eyes flinched for a second, so quick most people wouldn't notice. "But I did. I figured you were busy," she said. "You don't usually come to these things." "I always come when I'm invited." A long silence. She shifted her weight, then smoothed her dress. "These events are delicate, Dad. It's important that every piece fits the image we're building." There it was, not even veiled, not cloaked in polite excuse. Just the bare-bone truth. I didn't fit. She continued, her voice soft, almost apologetic, almost. "This isn't about love or appreciation. You know I'm grateful. You raised me, but the people in that room, they invest in stories, clean ones, ones with upward arcs. You being here, sitting at a donor's table, it would have invited questions. I didn't want to complicate that." I let her words hang there. Complicate. As if I were a plot hole in her perfect script. "As opposed to sitting me with the catering staff," I asked, "you think that invited fewer questions?" She bit her lip but didn't answer. I studied her then, not as my daughter, but as a grown woman, someone I barely recognized. She had learned how to be someone polished, influential, branded, and in that process she had unlearned me. "You're embarrassed," I said gently. You can call it image, you can dress it up in marketing speak, but it comes down to that. You're embarrassed by who I am. She shook her head too fast, like a reflex. No, it's not that. Elise. She stopped. For a moment her shoulders dropped. Her eyes lost their performance. I saw the little girl again briefly. And then she said, quieter this time, "You don't understand how these circles work. These people, Dad, they come from different expectations. Their parents are CEOs, diplomats, old names. I had to work twice as hard to even be heard." I nodded. "And who do you think paid for you to reach the door they're standing behind?" Silence. Not defensive, not tearful, just empty. The kind of silence you give someone when you don't want to answer honestly, because the truth costs more than the lie. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't shame her. I simply stepped back and said, "It's okay, I understand." She looked relieved for a second, like she'd just won a negotiation. But she didn't know. She didn't know that in the weeks leading up to this event, the very people she was so eager to impress had reached out to me, not knowing I was her father, not caring, just interested in money, connections, longevity. They didn't want the image, they wanted the infrastructure, and I had it. She thought I was here to clap politely from the shadows, but the man she just dismissed with marketing language. He was scheduled to attend the Foundation's board meeting next week as its newest voting member. And soon, the image she had so carefully curated would have to answer to something stronger. Ownership. I didn't argue. I didn't lecture, plead, or recite memories to make her feel guilty. That would have been the old me. The man who still thought closeness was earned by proving you were necessary. The father who clung to his seat at the edge of her world, hoping she'd look over her shoulder one day and finally wave him in. But something broke in that hallway, not loudly, not like a crack, more like a click, a door unlocking somewhere deep inside me. I looked at Elise, so poised, so controlled, so unaware, and I saw it clearly. She didn't need my help anymore, but she still needed my silence. And that's when I made a choice, not out of revenge, not even out of hurt, but out of respect for myself. I'd been invisible long enough, generous long enough. I'd paid enough bills, sold enough memories, waited in the wings long enough. It was time. Time to stop enabling her curated life. Time to stop confusing sacrifice with submission. Time to use the leverage I'd built not as a weapon, but as a compass. I walked back into the ballroom, past the stage, past the string quartet now playing something delicate and expensive. Table 19 had been cleared. The other guests had gone back to work or to their cars. Just my seat remained slightly askew. I straightened it. Then I took one last walk around the perimeter of the room, not like a father, not like a janitor, not like a guest, but like an owner surveying the value of an asset. No one noticed me, but I noticed everything: the placement of the banners, the strained smile on Elise's face as she posed for donors she didn't respect, the tremble in her voice when someone asked about long-term board involvement and she couldn't answer, because she didn't know. She didn't know what was already in motion. She didn't know I'd formed Northgate Investments not just to protect my savings, but to finally build something that belonged to me, and only me. She didn't know that weeks earlier, the Langford Foundation had quietly accepted a major infusion of funds from a legacy partner, the largest donation they'd received in 5 years. She didn't know that anonymous donor was me, or that the contract had been signed, or that the final clause in the agreement, Clause 17C, stipulated the addition of a new board member with full voting rights, financial oversight privileges, and veto power on major initiatives. She didn't know that the man she'd seated next to the kitchen was about to become her boss's boss. And the best part, she wouldn't find out tonight, because real power doesn't shout. It doesn't even knock. It signs paperwork in silence. I left without saying goodbye, slipped out into the cold, crisp air. I didn't look back. That night I drove home not as a wounded father, but as a man done asking for permission to matter. Every man has a breaking point, but if he's wise, he doesn't break. He pivots. After the gala, I didn't call Elise. I didn't follow up with a passive-aggressive message or wait for an apology that would never come. I just got to work. That Monday, I walked into a downtown office suite that bore no trace of my last name. A brushed steel plaque outside read, Northgate Holdings Executive Floor. My assistant, Carla, stood and nodded. Boardrooms ready, contracts printed, legal reviewed them twice. I nodded back. Let's begin. It had taken years, years of saving, years of asking questions in rooms where no one looked like me. Years of being underestimated, not just by Elise, but by every sharp-suited investment manager who thought a tradesman wouldn't know what EBITDA meant. But I listened. I learned. And when the pandemic hit and nonprofits began to bleed capital, I saw opportunity where others saw collapse. The Langford Women's Foundation was on the brink. Their endowment had dipped below sustainability. Their board was aging. Their vision was strong, but their infrastructure weak. So I made an offer, not as Mr. O'Neill, but as Northgate Partners, a quiet legacy firm that no one in Elise's world had bothered to research. They saw the zeros, they saw the terms, they saw salvation. They didn't see me. I preferred it that way. I purchased a 40% stake in their property holdings, real estate they hadn't even realized was undervalued. I funded a matching scholarship grant to ensure their outreach programs could continue for another 5 years. And in exchange, I asked for one board seat. Silent, discreet, not public-facing. It was granted, unanimously. They were relieved to secure long-term capital. Elise hadn't been consulted. The board chair, a man who valued checkbooks more than titles, was all too happy to add a quiet voice with deep pockets to their monthly meetings. It was poetic, really. She had carefully removed me from her public story. But now I was woven into the organization's foundation more deeply than any press release could reflect. I didn't do it to humiliate her. I did it to remind her, and maybe myself, that legacy isn't built in marble halls. It's built in mud and mortgage slips and late-night cleaning shifts. And now, every time she walked into that building, every initiative she proposed, every partnership she pursued, she'd be reporting to someone she never saw coming. It wasn't about revenge. It was about rebalancing the story, giving the invisible man a nameplate, a seat, a vote. And when the next board meeting came, I wouldn't walk in angry. I'd walk in calm, cordial, professional. Let them wonder who I was. Let her realize too late, because the man who swept floors so she could stand on stages, he now holds the key to the stage itself. Revenge doesn't always wear anger. Sometimes it wears a blazer and carries a leather folio. The day after the board chair confirmed the next quarterly meeting, I circled the date on my calendar not with red ink but with quiet anticipation. Elise still didn't know. She was traveling a social impact panel in D.C., a networking mixer in Chicago, a think tank breakfast with 2 senators' daughters. I watched her itinerary unfold on social media through filtered photos and overpolished captions. She's really built something, One of my old friends said after seeing her featured in a magazine's Next 40 Under 40 list. I nodded. Yes, she has. What I didn't say was that the scholarship program she was boasting about, it had been saved by a bridge grant underwritten by Northgate, quietly, without press, without ribbon cuttings, just checks that cleared when others bounced. For years I'd sent her money as a father. No terms, no conditions, just belief. Now I was sending it as a stakeholder, and stakeholders ask questions. The week before the meeting, I pulled all related documents into a binder, clean, labeled, tabbed, donation schedules, real estate transfers, board voting protocols, legal definitions of governance authority. Clause 17C, Clause 17C, Clause 17C, the clause that guaranteed me a seat, a voice, a vote, and if I chose to, the authority to pause funding temporarily or permanently pending audit of executive decision-making. It wasn't blackmail, it was structure. I didn't plan to use it, not unless I had to, but I needed to know the power was there. Just like I needed to know that, after all these years, I wasn't defenseless anymore. I called my lawyer, a quiet man named Edwin who'd known me back when I was patching drywall in his aunt's house. He read over everything again, nodded through the phone, and said what he always said when something was unshakable. Rock solid. That night, I stood in my small kitchen with a cup of coffee and reread the letter I'd written Elise 2 years ago, the one I'd never sent. It was about her mother, about how proud she'd be, about how I watched her grow from a wide-eyed girl into a woman I barely recognized but still loved. I folded it again, slid it back into the drawer. Not tonight, not like this. Some things didn't need to be read. Some truths had to be felt through action, not words. I wasn't coming for Elise. I was coming for my place at the table, the one I'd earned, the one she'd forgotten I built with my bare hands. And when the board meeting arrived next Tuesday, I wouldn't walk in as Dad. I'd walk in as Mr. O'Neill, board member, legacy partner, and controlling contributor of core assets. She wouldn't see it coming, but she'd never unsee it again. The boardroom didn't know who I was at first. To them, I was a name on the agenda, a late addition, Mr. O'Neill Northgate legacy partner. But I wasn't late, I was exactly on time. The meeting was held on the top floor of a midtown high-rise, behind glass walls and minimalist decor, the kind of room where words are used sparingly and wealth is spoken in posture. Elise arrived 5 minutes after I did. She walked in briskly, laptop under one arm, designer tote on the other, her staff trailing behind her like obedient shadows. She was confident, comfortable, until she saw me. For a split second, her face changed. Not panic, not shock, just confusion, and then she smiled, polite, professional, like I was a misplaced waiter in a wine tasting. Dad, what are you? Before she could finish, the board chair stood. Elise, I believe you've met Mr. O'Neill. He'll be joining us moving forward as the representative for Northgate Stake. She froze. I didn't. I rose, shook hands with each member, sat at the table, not behind it. I didn't look at Elise right away because this wasn't about revenge. This was about position. The meeting began: budgets, forecasts, new programs, expansion into international grants. Elise spoke with her usual fluency, elegant, forward-thinking, optimistic. But when questions of funding came up, all eyes turned to me. One board member asked, will Northgate be renewing the match for Q3? I opened my folder slowly, reviewing the financials. We're evaluating, I said calmly, pending internal audit and program alignment. They nodded as if this was normal, because it was. This is how power moves, not loudly, not emotionally, legally, quietly, through lines of approval that outlast any speech. Elise spoke again, this time with careful precision. We weren't made aware of any pending audit. Is that new? I finally looked at her. No, Elise, I said. It's part of the agreement. Clause 17C, you were copied on it. I believe your legal team reviewed it 2 months ago. She blinked. This wasn't the father she had dismissed at table 19. This was the man she'd been trained to impress her entire career. Except she never saw him coming. She nodded once, swallowing words she wasn't ready to say. And the room moved on. When the meeting adjourned, Elise didn't speak right away. She gathered her things slowly, avoiding my eyes. It wasn't until we were alone by the elevator that she turned. You did this to prove a point. I paused, looked at her, really looked. I did this, I said, because you forgot I exist outside of your narrative. She didn't respond because what could she say? She'd written me out of her story. I just turned the page and signed my name at the bottom. The elevator dinged. I stepped inside. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't looking up to her. I was looking down from the floor above. They say when a storm breaks, it's not always thunder that comes first. Sometimes it's the silence, the tightness in the air, the sudden awareness that something has shifted and can't be shifted back. That was Elise the day after the board meeting. She called me 3 times before noon. I didn't answer. On the 4th call, I picked up. Her voice was carefully measured, the way lawyers speak in press briefings. Dad, we need to talk. I let a pause linger. Go ahead. I didn't realize. I didn't know you were involved at that level. I mean Northgate, why didn't you tell me? I said nothing. She continued. This is affecting the team. They're confused. There's chatter. The staff is speculating. I'm just trying to understand what your intention is. There it was. She couldn't ask why I did it. That would mean acknowledging the truth. So instead, she asked about intentions, the language of damage control. I gave her what she didn't expect. Elise, I said, my intention is simple. I invested in something important. I offered structure. I followed every legal step. If that feels like disruption, maybe the system wasn't as stable as you thought. She was quiet. Then a sharper edge crept in. You could have talked to me first. You could have told me. I tried for years. She didn't respond. Instead, she changed the subject, the way people do when they know they've lost the room but still want to rearrange the furniture. We have an event coming up. Media will be there, donors. If the board dynamic is changing, it would help if we aligned messaging. It took everything in me not to laugh. She still thought this was about spin. I stayed calm. I don't need to be mentioned or pictured or included, but I will be watching and I'll be voting. She exhaled, not relief, defeat. Elise wasn't used to power she couldn't define, power that didn't want attention but impact. And for the first time she realized that my silence had always been a choice, not weakness. She hung up without saying goodbye. 2 hours later, I received a forwarded email from the foundation's PR consultant. Subject line, messaging strategy reassessment. It included a media plan, new donor talking points, and a redacted press quote. We are grateful for the quiet strength behind our most transformative gift. They didn't name me. They didn't dare. But now they knew. And what they feared more than exposure was accountability, because I didn't want revenge. I wanted responsibility, and they weren't ready for either. The next gala came quickly. This time I didn't have to buy a ticket. My name was printed on the official invitation in the governance and executive oversight section, below the chair but above the director. They asked if I wanted to sit on stage. I declined. I wanted a seat with a view, not a spotlight, but I didn't sit at table 19. That night, Elise stood at the podium again. Same posture, same smile, same dress code of controlled warmth and polished language. But something was different, not in what she said, in how she said it. Her eyes flicked toward me more than once, not with recognition but with calculation, like she was performing on a tightrope that now had an audience member she hadn't prepared for. She thanked the usual donors, referenced the expansion of their scholarship program. Then carefully she paused. I want to especially acknowledge the quiet generosity that helped make this year possible, she said. We've had incredible support from legacy partners, and we're honored to continue building a future grounded in trust and transparency. It sounded sincere, but sincerity isn't always truth. After the applause, the mingling began. Glasses clinked, camera flashes popped, staff passed out hors d'oeuvres on silver trays. I stood near a marble column, sipping a glass of sparkling water, watching. That's when it started. First, a longtime board donor approached me. "You're Northgate, right?" he asked, adjusting his cufflink. "Didn't realize you were tied to Elise. Brilliant work you've done, discreet but effective." I nodded. A few minutes later, one of the younger staff members, someone Elise had trained, came by. "She never mentioned you were on the board," she said with wide eyes. "I mean, not even once. We all thought. Well, we didn't know who was behind the scholarship fund." I said nothing. Let silence speak. Then came the press. Not journalists exactly, but local newsletter editors, community bloggers, a lifestyle magazine rep. They all swirled around Elise, asking about expansion, upcoming programs. And one asked the question she hadn't rehearsed for. "There's a rumor the foundation's largest silent partner is related to someone on staff. Can you comment on that?" She froze, just a beat, but it was there. "I'm not aware of any such connection," she said, voice calm but clipped. "We receive support from a wide variety of legacy channels. What matters most is the work, not the name behind it." She moved on quickly, but the seed was planted, and by the end of the night a few whispers had grown into quiet conversations in corners. Not accusatory, not scandalous, just curious. Why didn't Elise acknowledge her father? Why was he seated in the shadows last year and suddenly at the center now? And why did a man who looked like a contractor walk like he signed the building's lease? She hadn't just edited me out. She'd replaced me with a myth. And now the myth was cracking, not because I exposed her, but because the truth had finally entered the room and stood taller without saying a word. The next morning, the foundation's internal message board lit up with questions. Staff asked why they'd never been informed of new voting oversight. Program leads requested clarity on budgeting approval. A few even asked why the donor recognition wall didn't include Northgate or the man who'd been spotted quietly speaking with the board chair after the gala. Elise didn't respond publicly, but privately. Her story was unraveling. Because when you build a brand without roots, the first storm always wins. And this one had been years in the making. Elise always knew how to manage perception. She spoke in crafted phrases. She posted selectively. She understood lighting, angles, narrative framing. In her world, optics were everything. But optics only work when no one's looking too closely. After the gala, the questions kept growing, not from me, not from press junkets or exposés, but from inside. Staff, donors, community partners, people who knew enough to wonder, why hadn't Elise ever mentioned her father's involvement? Why did the foundation's largest legacy contributor have no public acknowledgement? Why had the new board member, the one with Northgate's portfolio behind him, been seated at the help table just 1 year ago. The whispers turned to group chats, then to blogs, then to inboxes. A small online editorial picked up the story under the headline, "The Silent Stake: Who Really Funds the Langford Women's Foundation." It wasn't an attack, it was an inquiry, but the questions it raised were sharp. And Elise didn't have clean answers. I hadn't leaked anything. I hadn't called a journalist. I hadn't made a scene. I simply existed. And for the first time, that was enough to shake her world. A week later, the Foundation's social team released a polished, vague statement. "We are proud of our diverse board and deeply grateful to all of our partners, both public and private. We do not comment on speculation, but our commitment to equity and transparency remains absolute." It was the kind of line written to end questions, not answer them. But silence, once pierced, becomes a loud thing. I received a call from the magazine that had featured Elise months earlier, the 40 Under 40 piece. The editor asked if I'd be open to a follow-up. "We're revisiting the feature," she said. "There's interest in understanding the story behind the story, how your support shaped her path." I declined. "I'm not the story," I said, "just the ground she walked on." The piece was published anyway. This time it told both sides, not bitterly, not cruelly, but truthfully, about a widowed father who worked 2 jobs, who built an investment firm quietly over decades, who funded a foundation not to be seen, but because he believed in what it could be, and about a daughter who forgot to say his name. The article didn't go viral. It didn't need to. But within days, the Foundation's board had a special session. Internal inquiries were made. Elise's leadership was not questioned outright, but her narrative ownership was. A staff member stepped down. A donor paused contributions. I never raised my voice. I never lifted a hand. I simply stood where they finally had to see me. And Elise, she began to look over her shoulder, not because she was guilty of some crime, but because she had built a kingdom and forgotten the architect. She wasn't in danger of being fired, but she was being redefined. And for someone who had spent her adult life building a persona, that was worse. Collapse doesn't always look like falling down. Sometimes it looks like standing still, while everything you used to outrun finally catches up. The unraveling didn't come all at once for Elise. It arrived in emails that started with "per our last conversation" and ended in "pending reconsideration of our commitment." It came in donors who requested new board oversight, in volunteers who stepped away quietly, in a mentorship panel that removed her name from the final program, not because she had done anything unethical, but because her story no longer fit neatly into the box she'd so carefully built. And in the nonprofit world, image is capital. The board didn't accuse, they audited. The staff didn't revolt, they withdrew. Her carefully curated narrative had depended on the illusion that she had climbed alone. But the moment people realized a staircase had been paved for her and that she had never acknowledged it, they stopped applauding her altitude. The scholarship program I had saved. The board voted to rename it. Not in my name. I didn't allow that, but they removed hers. Langford Scholars became Legacy Fellows. Quiet, neutral, honest. The emails she forwarded to PR now ended in shorter replies. The board meetings grew colder. And Elise, she looked tired, not defeated, just real. A woman slowly waking up in a house built on air. And through it all, I remained still. I didn't retaliate, I didn't gloat. I never said, "I told you so," because this was never about revenge. It was about recognition, and recognition is earned, not enforced. One afternoon, months after the first cracks appeared, I received a letter. Not an email, a letter. From Elise. It wasn't long. She didn't beg. She didn't justify. She wrote, "I thought I had to be someone else to be taken seriously. I didn't realize what it cost until the silence came back to me. Not from the world, but from you. I don't know if I can fix it, but I see it now, and I'm sorry." It was the first time she had written to me in over a decade. No request, no invitation, just a sentence of truth, and that was enough, because collapse is not the end of something. It's the removal of what wasn't strong enough to stand. And what's left, what remains, is the part you can build on. We met in a quiet cafe. Not the kind Elise usually picked, no marble counters, no exposed beams, no specialty oat milks with handwritten chalkboard menus. Just a booth, a chipped table, the kind of place where coffee smells like memory. She arrived late, no assistant, no curated outfit, no professional armor, just Elise, no stage version. Just the daughter I used to carry on my shoulders. She sat across from me, hands folded, like she didn't know where to begin. That was fine. I wasn't there for speeches. "I've been thinking," she finally said, voice low, "about everything, about the board, about the past year." I let her speak. "I didn't mean to erase you," she said, "but I did. I rewrote things because I thought it would make the story cleaner. I wanted the narrative to match the room, I thought. If I looked like I got here alone, maybe they'd respect me more." She looked up, eyes red but dry. "And the thing is, they did. They respected me, they gave me awards, they gave me seats, but I don't think I ever really felt proud, because somewhere deep down I knew it wasn't all mine, and I didn't know how to honor you without complicating everything I'd worked for." I nodded. Her words didn't surprise me. What surprised me was the stillness I felt inside while hearing them. "You wanted control," I said gently, "so you edited the parts of your story that didn't match the picture." She winced, but didn't deny it. I sipped my coffee. "Elise, I'm not angry anymore. I was, for a long time, but what hurt most wasn't that you rewrote the story. It was that you did it believing I wouldn't notice, or worse, that I didn't matter." Her eyes dropped. "And maybe," I added, "you believed that because I let you believe it." I stood back. I clapped from the shadows. "I thought that's what good fathers did, stay invisible so their children can shine." She whispered, "I'm sorry." And I believed her, but this wasn't about forgiveness. It was about truth. I leaned forward. "I love you, that will never change, but I won't be erased again. I won't sit at a table I paid for while someone else calls it their house." She nodded slowly. "I know. You don't have to put my name on walls, but you don't get to build walls around me either." There was a long pause between us. Then she said, "So where do we go from here?" I looked at her, not with anger, not with pride, just peace. "I don't know," I said. "But wherever we go, it starts with me being seen." She nodded, and for the first time in years, we sat in the same room, not as strangers, but as two people finally telling the truth. The next Thanksgiving, I didn't wait for an invitation. I hosted. It wasn't grand. Just the backyard, a folding table, a fire pit, and enough mismatched chairs to go around. The guest list wasn't curated, it was chosen. A neighbor who lost his wife last spring. Carla from Northgate, who didn't have family in the city. A retired school janitor who still brought his own mop to church just to stay moving. And my sister June, who always brought too much potato salad and never apologized for it. People who remembered birthdays without Facebook reminders. People who didn't ask what you did for a living before asking how you were doing. People who, when they said thank you, looked you in the eyes like they meant it. I grilled the turkey myself. Elise came. She parked down the block, walked through the gate without her phone in her hand, and gave me a hug that didn't feel practiced. She brought nothing but a pie she baked herself, crust uneven, edges burnt. It was perfect. We didn't talk about the board. We didn't talk about branding. We talked about her mother, how she would have hated the new city skyline, how she used to hum when washing dishes, how Elise had her same stubborn streak and my same shoulders. Elise asked about Northgate. I told her it was doing fine. She didn't ask for more. I didn't offer. And it felt good. That night, as the fire crackled and old Motown played low from a speaker, I looked around the table and realized this was family, not just by blood, but by choice, by consistency, by mutual presence. I didn't need the stage anymore, didn't need applause, didn't need to be edited into anyone's speech. I had my seat, and I knew what it cost to earn it. Elise sat beside me as we passed around pie, and for the first time in years, I saw something real in her. Not guilt, not performance, not debt, just presence. We didn't say much that night, but sometimes peace doesn't speak. Sometimes it just stays. And in that quiet backyard surrounded by good people and paper plates, I found something I hadn't realized I was missing. Myself. If you're listening to this, maybe you've been there. Not the gala, not the boardroom, not the investor meetings or the polished speeches, but the place where love turns into distance, where silence replaces recognition, where you go from dad to a line in someone's story they no longer read aloud. That place is real, and it's cold. I spent a long time thinking I could earn my way back in, through sacrifice, through patience, through more giving. But here's the thing, respect doesn't beg, and love, real love, doesn't have to be resubmitted for approval. Elise didn't ruin me, she reminded me. She reminded me of the cost of disappearing in someone else's success, of what it means to build someone's future while erasing your own, and of the quiet power of finally saying, no more, no more waiting in the hallway, no more being edited out of the photo, no more shrinking just to let others rise. There's a dignity in presence, not the loud kind, not the kind that demands to be seen, but the kind that waits and when the moment is right, stands. I don't know if Elise and I will ever be what we once were, but I know this: she sees me now, not as a threat, not as a liability, but as something stronger than either, the truth. And the truth doesn't need applause, it just needs light. So if you're listening and you've been made to feel invisible by the very people you gave everything to, don't raise your voice. Raise your value. They'll hear that louder than anything else. And one day when they look back, they won't remember the speeches. They'll remember the silence, and the man who stood in it unshaken.